And I'm going to mute everyone just to start so we don't get any background. So good evening, everyone. This is Cristina, and I am a gardener, and I have been a gardener since I was a child. We were literally forced to work in the garden. We had a huge raspberry patch, and then the back half of our garden, we had to put other things in. And then my grandparents, my grandmother on my father's side had an acre garden, and she had a farm. She had 22 milk cows, 350 chickens, 6 hogs, and an acre garden. And she was about my age and was dealing with all of that. Now, she did have some farm hands that lived there, and she fed them, and she'd get up at 4:30 in the morning, and she cooked on a wood stove, and she made fried potatoes and eggs and pork chops or bacon or whatever for breakfast. And then they ate potatoes 3 meals a day. She lived in Michigan, but she was a gardener, and she was really inspiring to me. And then my grandmother on the other side, her brother was a big gardener, and he moved in where my great grandfather used to live, and his garden was incredible. But I remember as a younger person feeling like gardening was grueling because of the heat, and you had to pick the beans, and you couldn't miss any beans, and it just was a job. But I have found that there's something about being with the earth, being outside, having my feet grounded, my hands in the dirt, that is so life-giving to me, literally life-giving to me. And so, yeah, it does get hot when I've got to pick my beans or tomatoes or okra or whatever it is that I have to pick. But I have learned to accept the good with the bad, I guess you could say. So I'm assuming that if you knew this was a gardening class, that you are also a gardener, or maybe a startup gardener, or, on a scale from 1 to 10, it might be a 1 or you might be a 10 plus, who knows? Wherever you land, there's going to be some basic things that seem to apply to everyone during the stages of this gardening journey. Things like weeds, pests, and bad harvests show up in every garden every year. I know. I don't think I've ever had a real bad green bean harvest, but I've had bad tomato harvests. I've had, where I've nurtured all these plants, and then nothing really came to fruition. But it's like working toward a large goal. It's the growth that you get on the journey that really, makes us better. If you are growing, if you're getting frustrated at every turn, if you're just really unhappy and you're not experiencing joy from 1 degree to another, or from one day to another, then maybe gardening is not for you. But this class is going to be your ticket to tackling even some of the hardest of seasons. And you'll have some tricks up your sleeve that will help you to succeed from the day the seed goes in the ground to the day you harvest it. And I will tell you, I've already got my peas planted. So if you do sugar snap peas, which I do, they should be in the ground. Get them in the ground. If you've got time tomorrow, get them in the ground. With all this nice rain that we're getting, and of course, all of what I'm saying is totally dependent on where you are right now. But with all the nice rain that we're getting, it's really giving those peas an opportunity to germinate. And they love the cooler weather, and it's going to get hot here very quickly. I also planted my seed trays, and in my seed trays, I plant watermelon and yellow squash and cucumbers. And I did some huckleberries this year. And what else did I plant? I think that's about it that I planted in my seed trays. And I've got a special watermelon that I'm growing. It's called a Congo watermelon. And the seed is difficult to find, but it's an old watermelon that grew in the South and Southeast, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia area. And they were always so large that it was cost prohibitive to ship them. So I've had the taste of a Congo watermelon, and it is so outstanding that I got it from what do you call those? Heirloom seed place. And of course, they're not hybridized or anything. And I had actually taken the seed from the watermelon I had last year, and I planted it, and I got a watermelon, but I had planted it so late in the season, like in June, because that's when they were ripe and I was eating them in Georgia. I got a watermelon. It was about the size of a large cantaloupe, but it hadn't come to fruition. But I knew that I was going to have good luck growing them. So if you don't have your seed trays planted yet, that's okay. Maybe you don't do seed trays. Maybe you buy all your plants. I buy my tomato plants from Effinger's here in Belleville, and every year, because they have good, hardy, non-genetically modified tomato plants. And I like Early Girls because they're consistently sized, and they're great for canning. And we're going to talk about some canning too. So let's get on with it. All right. First, I always, got to tell you a little bit about the essential oils. What are they? They are the chemical compounds that make up the lifeblood of a plant. And they're even referred to as the immune system of the plant. We are able to use them through the process of distillation after harvesting. The part of the plant with the beneficial chemicals, the stems, the leaves, the bark, is harvested, and then it's sent through a very meticulous distillation process. And every plant needs very specific distillation time. And the Young Living, of course, has 25 years of experience in this art. It is not only an art, but it is also a science. After the plant is distilled, a concentrated oil is the result, and it is potent, and it's loaded with uncountable benefits for your overall health and your wellness. It's bottled and shipped to you, and then you can use it topically, aromatically, or internally. That's what essential oils are. The beneficial chemicals in the oils can actually be absorbed by your body and the plants in your garden to maintain optimal overall health and wellness. And because they're so concentrated, one little drop goes a very, very long way. So wait until we get into the canning section of this class, and your mind will be blown. Okay, so seed to seal. This is hugely important. Why? Because the FDA has almost no regulations and safety measures on the essential oil industry. The oils found in drug and big box stores like Walmart and online, and even from other oil companies, have been tested to find and found that they had harsh synthetic fillers and chemicals in them. So a cheap perfume grade oil may be available, but it's going to be distilled at high pressure and high temperatures so that they can get more oil out of the plant material. And they usually add a chemical solvent to suck out more of the oil out of the plant. This will then yield an adulterated oil that can still be labeled 100% pure, which in my opinion is a very, very scary thing. So Young Living decided to rise above that and create their own strict guidelines to ensure purity. And it's called the Seed to Seal Quality Commitment. And they abide by very, very strict guidelines to fulfill their promise in sending only the best products to your home. The plant material is grown on corporately owned farms or carefully vetted partner farms that you can visit. And I just found out recently that one of the reasons that we don't have wintergreen right now as a single oil is because one of our partner farms somehow contaminated the wintergreen, and we had to reject it. So of course that wastes an awful lot of money, you know, but we have a standard, and we take great care to stick to that standard. We also take great care to preserve and protect the natural resources from whence these oils come. We hand weed the fields, and there is zero use of any pesticides, and the oils will retain all their natural constituents and therapeutic properties by the way we treat them. Use of food grade distillers with state-of-the-art design and distillation methods are used, and low pressure and low temperature distillation without the use of solvents or synthetic chemicals. We do rigorous testing on each batch by internal labs and third-party facilities, and oils that are carefully reviewed through every step of production in order to meet or exceed industry safety and purity standards beyond organic. And you know what the best part is if the oils do not meet these high standards, just like that wintergreen, they're rejected, and they're not going to be bottled as a Young Living product. So now you can sleep tonight knowing that you have the best, the absolute best essential oils on the planet. And of course, if you want to know more, you want to share information with somebody that you're sharing the oils with, tell them to go to seed2seal.com, and they can read the whole story on, you know, why our oils are different and why quality really matters to us. So let's jump in now that we've kind of gotten that, you know, understanding under our belt. Let's take a look at tackling the outdoors. It's no secret that bugs can totally ruin your garden and your garden plans. So from eating your plants to taking a bite out of you, they can really dampen any gardening dreams. And I know for me, I haven't had any of those annoyances with them taking a bite out of me since I've been using oils, because I usually use the, I think it's called the insect repellent or something like that. And it's an oil based. And one of the things that I found when I put this all over my arms, and I'll put it on my face, and if I've got my hair up and under a hat, I usually wear one of those hats that cover my neck, but I can put it anywhere. If I've got shorts on, of course, I'm going to put it on my legs. But what I have found is that oil that they mix together for that insect repellent is so moisturizing, and I never burn. I never sunburn. So I have the mineral sunscreen that Young Living has, but when I use that, you know, that bug resistor stuff that we have, I don't have any problem burning. And if anybody knows me, once gardening starts, I am out in the garden anywhere from, you know, 3 to 8 hours a day. And that is in addition to my 5-mile walk in the morning. So many days when I'm gardening, I'll get in 17,000 steps, which, you know, keeps me in shape in the summertime. It really does, because I don't get those kinds of steps in the winter. 10,000. Right now I've got 8,622. So I better get another 1,500 in tonight, which is not going to be hard. So anyway, you could use insecticides or sprays made from harsh chemicals to tackle the outdoors, but certainly at a cost to you and a cost to the environment. And they can lead to what we call bioaccumulation of toxins in your body and even in your plants that can be linked to chronic illnesses and disease. I'm not willing to do that. And I think most of the people I think I see 20 people on tonight. I would probably say that all 20 of you feel the way I do. Fortunately, Young Living has that insect repellent that has been tested to repel mosquitoes, ticks, and flies. And it uses 100% derived plant-based ingredients with pure sesame oil and carefully selected essential oils traditionally used for their bug repellent properties. And it all comes together to make up 99% of the active ingredients in the insect repellent. The other 1% is vitamin E. This may be the reason why it's so nourishing to my skin. I'll tell you what, my skin loves the insect repellent. And when you think about it, when you think about the oils, the essential oils that are in there, we're not repelling anything. We're feeding ourselves. I mean, we are repelling something, but we're feeding ourselves too. My skin loves it. So that means that you can use it on your little ones and you don't have to worry about synthetic chemicals and, you know, in the traditional repellents. You'll also really like the way it smells. It has a citrusy aroma and it isn't sticky at all. It's, oh, just wonderful. But if you are more in the DIY kind of, you know, mode, and that would not be me, here's an outdoor spray that you can use. It can be used on you or your plants. How convenient is this? So the outdoor spray consists of 2 ounces of witch hazel, 2 ounces of distilled water. And if you'd like me to, let's see if I can copy this. Whoops, I just moved my slide. Nope, it's not gonna let me copy it. I was gonna say I could copy it and post it in there, but it's 2 ounces of witch hazel, 2 ounces of distilled water. And if you saw this right away, you'd have time to write it down too. 20 drops of thieves, 20 drops of lemon, 20 drops of rosemary, and 20 drops of citronella. Mix this all together in a 4-ounce glass spray bottle and shake every time you're going to use it, and spritz it on yourself as needed, and spritz it on the plants in the evening. In the evening. Because doing it in the morning may burn the leaves as the sun rises. And we want to keep those plants safe and protected as much as possible. And usually it's when I go to bed and wake up in the morning that my plants have been chomped on. So do it in the evening before you go to bed, maybe, or, just as the sun's going down. That's probably the best. All right. I haven't had a puppy in a very, very long time. And now I have one. And he is beginning to dig. And he digs in my gardens. He's dug up my bulbs. And as I was getting prepared for this class, I said, I am definitely going to try this. Now, we love and adore our pets, but how do we keep them out of our gardens? Let's face it, they get into the garden and they can cause quite a mess, right? So a simple and safe way to encourage them to stay away is by using scents. And dogs, I learned, dislike the smell of black pepper. And cats dislike the smell of rosemary. So you could even plant rosemary all over, if you have cats. I don't have cats, so I don't have to worry about that. But I'm going to be using some black pepper. Therefore, the black pepper and the rosemary, the dogs and the cats will stay away from these areas with that scent. And if you didn't know already, we have both black pepper and rosemary. So here is the Pets Be Gone recipe. What they say to do is drop the essential oils, which is 5 to 10 drops of whether you're making the cat or the dog repellent, black pepper or rosemary, into a shallow pan of warm water. It doesn't say how much warm water, but whisk it until it's spread throughout, and then soak these strips of old clothing or washcloths just cut some strips and soak them in there, and then let them for about 30 minutes, and then let them dry, and then tie these strips. You know, you could put little stakes out in the yard just so they could smell it, or plants. You could put it on the plant. I noticed that Mingo was trying to attack my peach tree. It's small. It's very small. I grew my peach trees from peach seeds, and they're about, I suppose they're about 3 feet tall now. And he was trying to attack it. And I don't want him to destroy all that time and work that I've put into preserving my peach trees. So I'm going to take one of these strips and I'm going to tie it around that peach tree, and hopefully it'll keep him away. So you're going to soak those strips, and then you're going to dry them out, and then you're going to tie them around wherever, either stakes or your plants. And now your beloved little fuzzball won't ruin your garden. And I have yet to prove that, but I will give you an update. Trust me. Okay, so another thing that we have to fight, and I do fight this around my pond. I have a goldfish pond in the backyard, and it has rocks around it, the smaller rocks. And I get a lot of tiny, you know, like creeping Charlie and yellow clover, sweet clover, and a lot of stuff that just comes up between those rocks. And it seems like I'm constantly weeding. So Kenneth has used a lot of oils in a weeding spray in the past that works. And here's another recipe, because we can waste an awful lot of hours weeding, although I think it's very cathartic for me. But summer is so short. Let's not spend unnecessary time dealing with weed overgrowth, okay? So if you're trying to get rid of unwanted plant growth that doesn't involve harmful chemicals linked to so many neurological and hormonal and overall health imbalances, just know that there are some safe alternatives. Weeds hate cinnamon. So you might want to try your hand at this DIY. It's called Wither the Unwanteds spray. We don't want to call it weed killer. Add 25 to 50 drops of cinnamon bark in a 4-ounce glass spray bottle. Top it off with some distilled water and shake and spray at offenders. Douse roots and leaves as needed. Sometimes unwanted friends begin to grow on our beloved plants, causing bad harvests and even plant death. They can block the pores of the plant responsible for breathing and eventually choke out the plant completely. They can also steal vital nutrients from the plants, which significantly decreases the amount of the harvest. So we don't want that. So we're going to make a spray called the Plant Love Spray. This is 10 drops of tea tree, 10 drops of peppermint, and 10 drops of citronella in 4 ounces of distilled water. Shake and spray along the affected parts of the plants during your garden chores. So there they are, unwanted and unpleasant growth. So we can wither the weeds, or we can wither those things that may be eating the plants. You know, I got black spot on my roses from my neighbor. You know how black spot jumps yard to yard. And I just aggressively cut back my roses for this year. They're only about, oh gosh, maybe 3 or 4 feet, if that. And so once they start to leaf again, and they are beginning to, because we've had some warm days, but we're supposed to get freezing here in about 4 days. It's supposed to go down to 30, but it may not be long enough to really affect those new buds. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, the first time I see that black spot, I'm going to give it some Plant Love spray, and fingers crossed that I'm not going to have black spot this year. I do a lot of companion planting, and I really believe in companion planting, and I'm going to give you a story why. When we first came to the Illinois area, I was not familiar with certain garden pests, one of which was the green horned worm. We'd never had it in the north, and I don't recall. We never had it until I got here. And the greenhorn worm is so camouflaged that when he is on a tomato plant, you are hard pressed to see him. And so, you know, from not knowing any better, something was eating my tomatoes and completely stripping the leaves off. And I had no idea. And then I saw him. And then I saw them. And they had completely destroyed my tomato crop by the time I figured it out that you could not hardly pick them off fast enough. So I did my research and I found, and this was many years ago when I first moved to the Illinois area. So that's got to be at least 25 years ago. I found out that basil is like the #1 deterrent of the green horned worm. And now every single tomato planting, every year that I plant tomatoes, I plant 9 tomato bushes, and in between those, I plant 3 large basils, and they flourish with those tomatoes because they just love each other. And I've never had another greenhorn worm, not one, because they don't like the smell of basil. Basil is a very strong, strong scent. So, so that works really, really well. Some plants play well together and other plants do not. And this is because every plant has certain nutrients that it uses from the soil for growth and its fruit production. Also, plants excrete certain byproducts back into the soil that can either help or hinder your harvest. So if you grow 2 types of plants next to each other that both rely strongly on nitrogen for growth, for example, they're going to compete and overuse the nitrogen in the soil, and they're going to starve each other out. So corn and tomatoes are a good example of plants that don't play nice together. What I do in my garden is I have raised beds, and I dedicate a raised bed to each plant group. So one raised bed is tomatoes, one raised bed is green beans, one raised bed is okra, one raised bed will be squash and cucumbers because they're of the same family. And then I'll have one raised bed where I'll have, kind of a little variety. I have collards in there, or baby bok choy, or I'll grow parsley or some pesto basil in there. Just whatever tickles my fancy, I guess you could say. Conversely, though, if you plant 2 types of plants next to each other that eat different nutrients, they're going to work together to promote each other's growth. So a good example of this is tomatoes and carrots. They work together in the soil. Therefore, you can actually plant them next to each other and you're going to get a much bountiful harvest. Why don't you try that this year? And then if you put basil in between, oh my gosh, you're just going to have such a beautiful, garden. I don't know how many of you have raised gardens out there. If you do, put it in the chat. I'd really like to know if you're raised garden bedding or planting, or if you're just planting everything in one, area. And then if you are, you need to think about, putting your corn on one end and your tomatoes on another side to keep them away from each other. But putting carrots in between those tomatoes might just be what the doctor ordered. So what does that have to do with essential oils? Well, essential oils are made from plants, right? So consider using oils in place of your companion plants if you forget to plant your basil. I'm not ever going to forget to plant my basil. Or you don't want to plant thyme, or, for whatever reason. For example, if you're looking to plant lavender next to your green beans, which I my lavender is in my flower garden. So I'm going to use this lavender spray to use on the soil and the leaves of my green beans and see if I even get a better harvest, because I do about anywhere from 24 to 36 quarts a year. I can all my green beans, and we're going to talk about canning here in a bit. But yeah, because my kids love my green beans, and I can always give them quarts of green beans. And I've started for the two of us, because we don't have anybody living with us right now. I've actually started doing my green beans in pints for me and Kenneth, because otherwise we're not eating them all. And, the whole quart, and then it's sitting in the fridge, and that story. So I'm going to create a companion spray to use on the soil and the leaves. And I'm going to add 10 to 15 drops of the corresponding essential oil to 4 ounces of water, right? In a glass spray bottle. And I'm going to shake it before I use it. So if you're doing green beans, you can either put lavender or basil. If you're doing broccoli, you can do basil or thyme. Now, broccoli is a fall crop, so I won't be planting broccoli until probably the beginning of August, or even the end of August. Carrots, you can do sage. Cucumbers, I'm going to do this one for sure. I want good cucumbers this year, so I'm going to spray that sucker with sage. If you grow onions, which I don't, you can spray it with German chamomile. If you do potatoes, which I don't have enough room for potatoes, but basil or sage. And maybe I'll try some potatoes. I do have some sweet potato plants that I might try, but I do know that the basil works. So this is just really, really exciting information if you're a gardener. I love this stuff. Love it. Okay, so did you know that some plants self-pollinate? Fruits like peppers can stand alone and produce fruit. They don't need another guy, another girl next to them to pollinate. They can just produce their own. But not every plant does that. And lots of them need help with cross-pollination and, between male and female plants. And you know who does that, right? Who helps with that? The pollinators, the bees, and the butterflies. They're some of the friendliest insects that you can have in your garden. I actually have a butterfly garden. I have butterfly plants. I have echinacea in there. I have columbine in there. I have some daylilies in there. I have some bee balm in there. I can't remember what else. I can see it, but I can't remember the names of them right now. But anyway, they all attract bees and butterflies. And then they're going to be very close to my garden. So without them, you're going to have measly harvests and be disappointed that all your hard work didn't result in the delicious produce that you wanted, right? So pollinators are attracted to the smell of flowers. And luckily, some of the wonderful essential oils are distilled from flowers. And that's so convenient for us. So you can create a spray using essential oils to spritz on the flowering buds of your garden to encourage pollinators to come and get the job done. So you're having a pollinator party, and you're making a spray for the party. And you're going to add 6 or 8 drops of lavender, 6 to 8 drops of orange, and you're going to put that in 4 ounces of distilled water in a glass jar, and you're going to shake, spray, and party with the pollinators. I think that is so cool. Bring on the bees. Oh boy, I gotta have some of my red drink. Okay. All right, so let's go down now. The summer is, we're getting harvest. Summer is really it's a wonderful time. And all your hard work and your patience is paid off. And now you get to pluck the delicious fresh food from the earth. I get to harvest my grapes. I have grapes. Oh my gosh. And I'm cutting them back aggressively this year. So hopefully I'll have a huge crop. Believe it or not, the more aggressive you are with pruning, the greater your results. Um, I have learned this through years of experience. Yeah, you're going to have delicious fresh food from the earth, and you're going to eat to your heart's content. And if you're like me, sometimes I find that fresh produce goes bad before I can even eat it. That's why I do a lot of canning. I do a lot of yellow squash, and I freeze that. I slice it up and I freeze it. And I freeze it in those kind of, I take the air out of the bags and it seals it for me. It's like a sealer machine that Kenneth uses. And then I put a date on it, and then I put it in the freezer. And then that way I just grab my yellow squash when I want to make a yellow squash casserole or whatever. But I do keep the fresh produce as well in the crisper, but sometimes it does go bad. And so, as you can see, it's really important to always wash your fruits and vegetables, even if you're growing an organic garden, because I think about things like, chemtrails, and, I don't know, how many birds have pooped on my tomatoes, or, and then the rain came, but I'm going to wash it anyway. I'm just saying. So it keeps you and your family from ingesting yucky things the produce might have tagging along on it. Young Living has an exclusive Thieves fruit and veggie soak, and that's what I use. So when I harvest my green beans and I bring them into the kitchen, I fill my sink full with about, 4 or 5 gallons of water. And then I put 1 capful of the fruit and veggie soak. And then I pour my green beans in there, and I, smush them and kind of agitate them like I'm a washing machine and get them really nice and clean. And then I will start to snap the ends off and put them in a colander, snap the ends off and I do that process. And then I rinse the whole batch that has been snapped. I don't break them up into tiny ones yet to put them in jars. I just take the ends off. So I just sit and take the ends off and then rinse them all. And then I let out that water. And usually you're going to find that when you soak your stuff like that, you're going to get a lot more sand than you thought you had on your vegetables. So it's really good to wash all of this stuff when it comes in the house. You can even make your own produce soak if you want. If you don't have the Thieves fruit and veggie soak, but I love it. I really do. And one of the reasons I do love it is because I think Gary told us that there were enzymes in there that would eat things like, so if you buy apples from the grocery store and maybe they've been lightly waxed, even if they're organic, they may put something on them. I don't know. Or people have touched them. He says that the oils that he has in the fruit and veggie soak actually digest that stuff. You can also use the Thieves dish soap, but those oils in the fruit and veggie soak, because I think there's digize in there, really gets to the heart of the crud and gets it off of there. So has anyone ever noticed that once the fruits and veggies get in the house that you sometimes get, pesky winged creatures, they magically appear? Well, if that happens, you can get a diffuser and put it in your kitchen, and then put in 2 drops of basil, 2 drops of peppermint, 2 drops of lavender, 2 drops of clove, and 2 drops of eucalyptus. And that will get them out of there. The last tip I have for you for keeping your harvest fresher for longer is to clean your storage containers, like, your crisper, and do it with Thieves dish soap. I only clean my refrigerator with Thieves. I actually use a Thieves cleaner, and because it doesn't have any sulfates or dyes or formaldehyde or phosphates, it doesn't have any synthetic perfumes, and it smells wonderful. It's one of my favorites. But if you if you have the Thieves cleaner and you don't have the dish soap, it doesn't matter. but clean those receptacles, clean that entire refrigerator. In fact, I got to roll my eyes because I have got to clean up my refrigerator. And it's just, to me, sometimes it's just a daunting task. I don't know if you agree with me, put yes, I hate to clean my refrigerator. And then if you live near me, maybe you can come over and help me clean mine. And then I'll go over to your house and help you clean yours. Sound like a deal? I think we'd have more fun doing it together. So we've talked about a lot of DIYs so far. Would you tell me in the chat which one you're most excited to try first? I'm curious. I would really like to see. All right, I'm going to talk about canning right now. I'm a notorious canner. I could talk about this topic forever because I love to can. I taught my kids to can. Of course, they don't can. I like to have people over to my house and we can. I canned 60 pounds of beets last year. I love beets. I pickled some of them and I pickled them with clove oil and cinnamon oil. Oh my gosh, and apple cider vinegar. I love them. And since I did that last year, and of course we're still eating them this, the winter and the spring now, I will put more clove and cinnamon in it next year because I really love that. If you can crab apples, we used to do that up north. I don't even know. I don't see a whole lot of edible crab apples down here, but we used to love to can crab apples. And it had a lot of cinnamon and clove in it. And they were sweet. So they probably put sugar in them back then. But I mean, you can use whatever sweetener you want. But to use those oils, it just permeates it and it's so much better. So I'm going to try to be brief on the canning or not. In order to can 30 quarts of spaghetti sauce, you're going to need a lot of oregano, lots. And buying dried organic oregano adds up very fast in order to achieve the flavor that you want in your recipes. But remember when we talked about how essential oils are concentrated liquid forms of the plant? Well, you better believe that that means that they're going to pack a big flavor punch for each drop that you use. So for one large pot of spaghetti sauce, I use about 2 to 3 drops of oregano vitality essential oil, as opposed to a much larger amount of dried oregano. You can actually add anything. If you want to add marjoram, if you want to add thyme, if you want to a big pot like that, add 1 drop of cinnamon oil. It's just a hint, but it makes all the difference in the world. And when I make meatballs, these are secrets. That's why I'm lowering my voice. When I make meatballs, I put 1 drop of cinnamon oil in it. And nobody knows. And they're so good. But I'm a big cinnamon lover, but it doesn't scream cinnamon. You know what I mean? I mean, when I'm making a big batch, 1 drop, and that's all you need. So the oils that you love, or the herbs that you love to put in your sauces, in your canning, try using. Make sure that less is better in the beginning, because you're going to save money and you're going to use a high quality ingredient. It's going to be a win-win, but you don't want to overdo it and then have a bad product turn out. You know that Young Living has an entire line of ingestible oils that you can use in your canning recipes. It's called the Vitality line. We also know that the same oil is found in the non-Vitality bottles. There is a great selection of herbs, spices, and citruses. Plus, they are all non-GMO certified. My kind of stuff. That's huge. Okay, if you're a newbie to gardening, what's your favorite thing to can from your garden? And if you're a not so new newbie, what's your favorite vitality oil to cook with? Put it in the chat box. I want to know, what's your favorite thing to can from your garden? I do tomatoes. I can tomatoes, green beans. I do a hot pepper jelly that my family just loves. In fact, I think it was my grandson-in-law that said to me last year, he said, I could sell this stuff for $15 to $30 a jar. Do you have enough to sell? And I said, no, I don't make this stuff to sell. And he says, well, my buddies love it and they want this pepper jelly. And I said, well, they'll just have to come visit you more often because I'll give it to them all day long. I do, like I said, I did beets this year and I'll do pickled peppers sometimes. I don't do a lot of pickling. I've not been good at dill pickles except for refrigerator dill pickles. I'm really good at that. And I do use the dill oil for that. And I haven't made them in ages and I love them. So, you know, it's just one of those things getting around to doing, right? Okay. So we know we love our plants when we are willing to break our backs, scrape up our fingers, get stiff like I do. And that's why, so my red drink has sulfurzyme in it. And I go through a lot of sulfurzyme in the summertime because I'm doing back breaking, weeding and hoeing and pulling and planting. And like I said, I'm out there from anywhere to 3 to 8 hours a day. Kenneth has literally had to drag me out of the yard and I have been too tired to put away my implements. So he's cleaned up after me. What a man. I mean, do they get any better than that? I don't think so. But anyway, Young Living knows just that you are as important as those plants and vice versa. And so the gardener needs just as much care as the garden. You can try deep relief roll-on or pan away for sore muscles and whip up this simple roller recipe to soothe minor skin irritations. So if you did get bit or you did have a scrape or you did, you know, something, you know, happened, make up this blend. It's 5 drops of lavender, 5 drops of purification, 3 drops of peppermint. Put it in a carrier oil of your choice and in a 10 milliliter bottle and, you know, carry it in your garden tote. Oh, I just got a new pair of gardening. Where are they? Oh, I must have put it out in my garage already. Oh gosh, I got this new pair of hand clippers that are sharper than snot. And well, snot's not sharp, but sharper than anything. And I can't wait to go out there and use it. See, that's how much I love gardening. I'm just, so anyway, also for skin, there is a DIY soothing stick that you can make. You know, if you want to, well, actually, yeah, you would probably have to melt some paraffin wax and some shea butter and then put your oils in there to make a stick. But if you're wanting something like that as opposed to a roll-on, just, you know, do a Google on like lip balm, you know, mixtures, and then you can put these same oils in there and you can use that on your skin as well. So for the newbies on this call tonight, what other areas do you need support in as far as being outdoors and in the garden? And for the not so newbies, give us some of your favorite YL must-haves for the outdoors. Tell us in the chat, what would you not be without for outdoors? Okay. Above everything else, I want to give you a very heartfelt thank you. If you are not a member in Young Living, I want you to get together with the person that invited you to this call. If that's me, then my number, you can text me in the chat, give me your number and I'll call you. Text me personally. And I'm going to get you the best deal because we want you to save 24%. And also many of us have a 10% additional off this month. And if you order this month, you're going to actually get 34% off on anything that you get if you're not a member. So get the best deal. And gardening is very near and dear to my heart. And sharing ways to improve the gardening experience with you guys is really an honor and a privilege. And I deeply and passionately believe that we all deserve better health and better wellness. And that applies to everything we do and everything we love. So I hope that you were blessed by this class tonight, and I hope that you learned something new. If you did learn something new, I really want you to put it in the chat, because we're going to chat offline here in just a minute, and tell me what you learned today about gardening and oils. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. You guys are awesome. You guys are great. Thank you so much. And I'm going to stop the recording. If I can find where to do that. Stop recording.